Okay, good morning. So I'm Thomas Abraham James. I'm the CEO of Longland Resources, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of Conico Limited in Australia. And I'm joined today by Dr. David Holwell. So he's an advisor to the company, has been with us since the very beginning when Longland first started, and is an expert in magmatic sulfides, nickel and copper sulfide deposits, having worked in this industry for over 20 years.
Great. And could you give a quick overview of, and just say Conico is, or Longland is?
So Conico is an exploration company. So we're listed in Australia. We have two key projects in Greenland. So the one I'll be talking about mostly today is the Ryberg project, which is Greenfield's exploration, opening up a new frontier. And then we have the Magmatism project further to the north, which contains the historic Bleaklip and lead zinc mine and the surrounding geology. And also, actually, we have a project in Australia as well, which is the Mt Thirsty Nickel Cobalt Laterite project.
Thomas, thank you for the introduction. Thomas and David, really nice to have you both on the interview today. I've never worked in Greenland. I have worked in many parts of the world, but never in Greenland. Could you perhaps kind of give me a kind of a rationale for being there? Because from what I know, it's quite cold and it's quite far away, so there has to be a good reason to want to get there.
Yes, I think what we did is that with it, David and I, we'd been working in Greenland prior to forming this company, so that was with another explorer, and so we're very fortunate to work there, but then also to get to this part of the east coast of Greenland, which is very underexplored compared to the rest of the country. And it was really from regional exploration, some visual observations of the mineralization, the potential of this area that gave us the impetus. What I might do is I might hand across to David. He can give the broader context of what it is that we're looking for and the reason for this location.
Yeah, so this part of East Greenland, as Tom said, is pretty underexplored. I mean, one of the reasons for that is because it's so remote. There are no permanent settlements for several hundred kilometers in each direction, but geologically, it's quite an exciting area.
You were just mentioning the Eastern Greenland is uninhabited and it's significantly underexplored. Could you just kind of kick off from there?
Yeah. Okay. So this part of East Greenland is fairly underexplored. Part of the reason for that is that it's so remote. There is no permanent settlements for a few hundred kilometers in each direction along the coast. But geologically, the area around the Ryberg license was the focus of significant magmatic activity and volcanism in a period of time around 55 million years ago, which emplaced a lot of intrusions which are prospective for copper, nickel, cobalt, PGE deposits. So there are a few known, a few that are being explored, and there is significant potential for more discoveries there. Sorry,
David, just a quick question. You talk about those intrusions in Greenland. Are there analogies in continental land masses that are explored and known and proven as kind of economic deposits?
Absolutely. So these sorts of intrusions are what we refer to as layered mafic intrusions. The most famous one would be the Bushfield complex in South Africa,
but that doesn't date back to 55 million years ago. You know, that's
no. I mean, no, that's much older, but it's formed in a very similar manner. And these sorts of intrusions are formed throughout geological time. Another good analogy for this part of East Greenland would be the mid-continent rift in the Lake Superior area, where there are intrusions like the Duluth complex and nickel sulfide deposits like Eagle, Tamarack, Thunder Bay, places like that. So this is one of the youngest provinces of such intrusions and prospectivity.
So whereabouts are you exploring? Can you point on the map where you are exploring?
Can you see my cursor?
Yes, I can.
Yes.
Yeah, and so that red dot that you're under the cursor is that's an intrusion, is it?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
And how much work has been done in this area?
Most of the work in this location has been focused on one particular intrusion, which is the Skaregard intrusion. That's been very well known over the years. And activities are focused on that. But when we first went across there, we were actually working on that particular project, but we did a 150-kilometer radius around it, which was our area of interest for new exploration, new discoveries. And that's when we came across what we see at Ryberg.
When you talk about the kind of nickel sulfides that you found, is that from your work or from kind of, did it take you in there from pre-existing work, or was it stuff that you found?
It was things that previous explorers had been in that location. So if we look at, say, Mickey Prospect, that was something that's identified because it is more or less juxtaposed to that Skaregard intrusion. So the magmatic sulfides that we see at surface there were mentioned before, but no additional work had occurred other than the observation, the geological sampling that occurred there. So that was the initial license we took, was contained that Mickey dike, which extends to about 50 kilometers, and we see mineralization the entire way. But we then broadened and we took out the entire area of interest, which is this 4,500 square kilometer project area that we have now. And really the best way we can explain that is it's the Goldilocks zone. So if you go further up to the north, you then start to see the flood basalts, the plateau basalts from a large igneous, the Mount of Magmatism, Volcanism. But when you get to the Ryberg area, most of those basalts have been eroded. So what you started to see is the root system to these plateau basalts. You also see that underneath the basalts, there's a sedimentary basin there as well, large source of sulfur. And then underneath that, you then get to the basement gneiss, which is significantly older, 3.5 billion year old basement gneiss there. So these intrusions, most of them are emplaced between the basement gneiss and the overlying sediments. And so that's where we're starting to see, that's where Skaregard is emplaced. If we look in our license area, we have a recently discovered layered intrusion there in Cascata, exactly the same setting. We then look further across, and in this year's magnetics, we then start to see another one, Kitty Paranek. That's another, what appears to be a layered intrusion in place there as well. So really, that's the key, is that interface.
So it's that interface. So I'm just getting my head around this. I'm new to this. You've got the crystalline basement gneiss, which was probably not crystalline, or it was possibly in the kind of the brittle ductile phase, with where it was buried, and then you've got the sediment package above, and you're saying that either chemical or competency contrast or pressure change or whatever it is, but that seems to be the preferred emplacement zone for these batholiths or lead intrusion complexes. And when you talk about a dike, when you talk about the Mickey dike, is that, do I think kind of Great Dike of Zimbabwe as a kind of a long, is it definitely a dike rather than a sill? I mean, what's the kind of the orientation, and what are you looking for? Is it a subvertical feature that you're focusing on?
The Great Dike of Zimbabwe is a good analogy, actually. So these dikes are large. They go on for tens of kilometers in strike length. And they are subvertical, up to 800 meters wide. They have igneous layering in them. And along the margins, rounded globules of copper, palladium, gold-rich sulfides.
And what your target is it interstitial nickel in a preferred layer, or nickel cobalt, that PGE nickel base metal suite in a preferred kind of horizon? Is that what you were looking for?
So in the dikes, it's not necessarily a stratiform reef-like deposit that we would be exploring for there. It is more massive sulfide accumulation. So dikes and sills that have these rounded globules of sulfide are often quite characteristic of being proximal to more massive sulfide deposits. So places like Norilsk, you will find sills with rounded globules, which have effectively, during that magmatic emplacement, have been whipped up from a large pool of sulfide. And essentially, that is the target with the Mickey dike system.
So within the broader dike system, you're looking for some kind of feeder zone which is tapping a sulfide-rich cumulate or concentration at depth.
Yeah, something within that system where there is a trap structure where those sulfides will have accumulated. So we've got evidence of them along the margins, trapped in the margins of the dike, but the potential is that those droplets could have accumulated somewhere into a massive sort of chonolith or conduit style massive sulfide accumulation.
Okay, so I'm getting my head around the target now. And you said, Thomas, you said that you'd taken out a 4,000 or larger square kilometer area, and that was based on what you called the Goldilocks zone, which was the erosional level, but kind of the stratigraphic kind of between the sediments and the gneiss. So you've got the right features. You had the presence of the sulfides, and I see in your news releases that you refer a lot to geophysics. Is this state-flown geophysics done by the Danish Geological Survey, or is this a geophysical survey that you have commissioned over your license area?
The area is completely virgin, so we actually had no geophysics at all. Everything that's there is something that's been acquired by the company. So we did, a couple of years ago, we did very limited electromagnetics over the Mickey Dike. We did one line of IP up at Sortie Cap. But last year we did the first regional geophysical survey, which is the magnetics and radiometrics, and it is well overdue. And it really has now, I've used in the past, it's sort of cracked the nut on this location rather than flying around. And, you can make wonderful visual observations, but now with this geophysics, we can start to see really the broad structures that are feeding these intrusions coming up, the broader geology, the features that stand out. So really, it's a treasure trove, and I guess that's why we've talked so much about geophysics recently, because it is so significant to have it.
And I noticed, the drilling that you did last year, it was kind of a play opener, but it didn't kind of give you the results perhaps that you might have dreamt of. And you talk about intersecting pyrrhotite in, I think was it in the granite, granitic intrusions, or was it in the gneiss? But anyway,
in the gneiss, yeah.
In the gneiss, it was pyrrhotite in the gneiss rather than the sulfides and the ultramafics, which were your conductors. So were you drilling on EM anomalies, and you only got the gravity, sort of the mag data later? Is
That's right, Mel. So we went out and we drilled the EM anomalies. This is over the Mickey prospect. So we're looking for the magmatic sulfides. The interpretation that came back, and there was nothing wrong with the interpretation, it was correct. It said there was something highly conductive there. And to explain the conductivity, it was either come down to the presence of pyrrhotite perhaps mixed with another type of sulfide, or graphite. And the presence of graphite was unlikely for this location. So these were deemed to be priority targets, and they were offset from the dike where we see the mineralization, but they were at a depth where it was not, you couldn't visualize it at surface. So we're just drilling purely geophysical targets. In my wildest dreams, I really wouldn't have expected that we'd go and drill down. We then hit sulfides, but they're completely unrelated to the mineralization we see at surface in the dike. So look, that is disappointing. But at the same time, we have learned, we move on. The good news is that the prospect is still very much alive. In fact, enhanced. We now know, okay, so the highest order EM anomalies that we went and drilled, they're represented by pyrrhotite, they're not associated. We now start to look at, okay, what are the second order anomalies that are there in the data? So we often look at those. That interpretation is happening at the moment, and then on top of that we then have the magnetic data, and this has been really pleasantly surprising. What we've seen is that in the dike itself we get these magnetic anomalies, and these are associated with where we've traversed before. We've definitely walked over this location, we've taken samples. As David mentioned, this is where we start to see grade of copper, nickel, cobalt, palladium at surface in sulfides. but it's a very geologically complex area. It's not just, very monotonous gabbro. There we see that something's been brought up by the dike, and it's these chunks of ultramafic rock, these xenoliths. And with those, you see magmatic sulfides there as well. So we have now multiple data sets supporting that this location is very much of interest. We move on from what we drilled last year. Benefit of hindsight is a wonderful thing, but I think this year we have a much better sort of proxy, targeting proxy there, and to be able to hit the mineralization of interest.
Well, give me some ultramafic rock names. Are they Lerzolites and Hausbergites and pyroxenites
and all those good things? A bit of serpentinite in there as well, for sure.
Good. Do you have a map of the magnetics that you could just kind of?
Yes, certainly. I'll share that with everybody. Okay, so this is the magnetic map here, and what I've done is I've highlighted all the prospects of interest. So we can see Mickey there in the southwest corner. The dark blue that's in the linear northeast trending, that is the Mickey dike. There is another one to the north of it, which you may be able to make out between Mickey and Salty Cap. So that's another one that's being evaluated.
Hang on, sorry, the Mickey dike, that dark blue, that's a low. Is that a mag low?
Yeah, it's reversely polarized, that one, so negatively polarized. So we see that at the time it's placed, it negative.
Just in terms of polarity, as in kind of the magnetic orientation of the Earth. Fascinating.
It is. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Cool. So this isn't a total magnetism. It's an actual well, it is. It's total magnetic intensity, but it's negative polarity. Anyway, we can talk about that offline, perhaps. Sorry. So Mickey, there's the strong linear feature. Yes. Sorry. Next one you were about to mention.
Yeah, so just to the north of Mickey, we haven't got it highlighted, but perhaps if you can see my cursor here, there's another large dike that's in place that we've looked at. We see mineralization at surface on that one as well. So that's another one that is being evaluated, and then leading up to Salty Cap. But really, this gives an overview of, well, firstly, the magnetic data, the features that we can pull out of it. And actually, I might just, if you allow me, I might just skip to the next slide, because this really is quite important. So what we're looking at here is the magnetic data, but the geophysicist, and forgive me, I'm not a geophysicist, but what the expert did with the interpretation is that they, using the software, they artificially manipulated it so that the helicopter, instead of it flying at 25 meters altitude, it's as though you're looking at the ground from 1 kilometer altitude. So you really only start to see larger, broader features. And the ones that have been really picked up are these major structures, which I've got. So the gray dashed lines. This one here has been known about. That one's been referenced before in historical literature. The ones to the south here, not so much. But these are significant because these are very deep faults. So they go down for significant depths, and they have a lot of movement to them as well. So if we look at the northern one, the vertical offset is 1 kilometer. The lateral offset is 3 to 4 kilometers. We see that where there are major intrusions in our license package, that they are associated with these deep-seated structures as well. So these are the major conduits, plumbing systems. And then the other thing is that we know that there's a series of grabens in this area, well, half grabens, where we see these offset faults. They tilt. We see sedimentary basin profiles build up. But there is thought that perhaps this particular one to the north and the one to the south are the bounds of a large graben in this area. So, and that's 38 kilometers wide. And something that the geophysicist has picked up on. So structurally, we're seeing it as quite a complex area, but this is helping us to target where these big structures.
A couple of simple practical question. How do you move around this area? I mean, it's a huge area. I can see it in the picture behind David that it's a rugged area. Is it all helicopter borne, or do you walk?
We walk a lot of it. So what we typically do is that we would be dropped off in a certain location and then maybe picked up, say, 5 days later. So we're quite happy to stay in the field. The conditions in summertime are, typically very good. We are looking at ways to reduce reliability on helicopter. So now that's another plus of where we're at now, is that so last year we imported the drill rigs, we imported the fuel. So we have that there. We then have dedicated prospects to work on. So we don't have to do this reconnaissance movements with helicopters. We can now set up fly camps in these locations and have the people stay there until the work is conducted. So really the amount of helicopter time now is going to be reduced significantly. And also the use of vehicles as well. And one of the rigs we have is a tracked rig. So all these things combined means it should be cheaper.
And then the next question really is, this all is reconnaissance work and advancing it. How do you go from here to really focusing on the targets, and what are the next steps to go from that pre-discovery towards that discovery phase? What's going to drive the market interest, let's call it?
Yeah, I think that with the data that we now have, we are able to rank and prioritize our targets, undoubtedly. So we can say, okay, some of the targets have got 3 layers of different types of data there that all point to the same thing, that there's something of interest there. Other ones, which are new discoveries, we don't have that. So the way that we see it is that leading up to the field season now, we are extracting everything that we can out of our existing data set. We're increasing the size of our team technically as well in order to do that. And then when we go to the field, we have the drill rigs there. It would then be going and drilling these ones with the best chance of success. In the meantime, with the new ones, which have only just been identified, we send people out there, and that would be sampling, mapping, handheld XRF, and really build up the picture as much as possible so that the intention still would be to drill those in the field season, but to be able to get a better handle on exactly where would be the sweet spot in those to go and do it. The other thing too is that with it, we wouldn't be, you have to know when to call it quits as well. I think that's important. So we go out there and, if we drill the priority drill holes in the prospect and they come back with, nothing of interest, then I think it'd be fair to say that we wouldn't then, keep on flogging a dead horse, that you would then move on to the next one, logical dictate. So it's not being driven by market conditions or anything like that. We're not chasing a metal which is the flavor of the month. It's really what we have is what we have, and they all do very much deserve to be assessed, and we have the ability to do so.
Just purely kind of out of curiosity, in terms of the drill rigs, did you buy the rigs, or are they on? How does it work in terms of the rental or the hire or the? Just because, how many meters did you drill last year, and how many meters have you committed to this year? In terms of the commercial arrangements and the contracts on those rigs.
Sure. So we drilled roughly 3,500 meters last year. It was a tricky year last year, I'll be honest with you, with the COVID restrictions and the Greenland border effectively shutting down whilst we're out there. It did make it tricky, a long season. But this year it appears that we won't have those obstacles. But with the drill rigs, they are not ours. They are a contractor out of Canada. We negotiated and agreed upon paying a rent to keep the rigs there during the off season, and then when it comes out to drilling this year, we'd be looking at achieving a minimum of 5,000 meters and hopefully substantially beyond that. I'm actually in Denmark right now, so I'm in Copenhagen. We're having discussions not only with logistics, but also with the geological survey here and others to really see if abilities to get more hands on deck, sharing of logistics, and so on. But the feel is that we've got a very strong field that we can commence in May this year. We didn't start until July last year. Once again, mostly due to COVID. This year, May is very much achievable. I've actually worked in this part of the world, in Greenland on the East Coast in April before. It's actually very stable and very achievable, so it's not flying into the unknown. and we can operate through until September, sometime end of September. So we have every opportunity this year to assess all prospects.
What is climate change increasing the availability of rock that you can see? I mean, have you got kind of snow melt and glacial retreat, which is uncovering fresh surfaces? You know, can you see that? Yeah,
it's very evident. It's to the point where it causes a lot of sort of amazing change. I've worked in this location since 2008. The change has been so drastic, it's almost unrecognizable in some facets, and that's not just purely just with the ice, but also with the flora and fauna. So it is significant, it is very real, but at the same time, the ice retreat is revealing the geology beneath it. It's quite a privilege to be amongst the first people to ever step foot on this ground, and really, this is Cascata last year as a prime example. That location previous years we never went there because it wasn't possible. It was glaciated. Since then, most of the glaciers retreated, and then we start to see sulfides lying there at the surface. And this is the opportunity in Greenland. Not many places in the planet you can do that.
I know there's part of me that feels a little bit kind of sick at the thought, but
yeah, I think with all of us, we're only human for thinking that way. Most definitely.
Yeah. Can we just talk about the 5,000 meters that you've got kind of lined up? You know, what are your targets for this program? You may not have all 5,000 meters delineated, but you've probably got an idea of which of the targets you're going to be testing.
All of them.
Okay.
Look, we've got the opportunity to do so we might as well. But of course, we then might get sidetracked if we get some success there. Then that will most likely take the rigs. But really, with it at the Mickey prospect, that one has to be drilled properly. So last year we didn't. This year we must. So that one will be assessed. Up at Salty Cap.
Hang on. So just at Mickey. You're targeting shallow holes into potential nickel sulfide ultramafics. Can you just kind of describe the target? Yeah. You know, are they long holes? Are you doing a series of fences, or is it one deep hole? Just a bit more color on what you're drilling at Mickey.
Yeah, sure. So the Mickey prospect it's magmatic sulfides, copper sulfides, and nickel sulfides. There's two different generations of sulfides there, both associated with precious metals. So we would be looking at we know that we're getting grade at surface. We can see the sulfides at surface. So I would not be thinking that they're going to be terribly deep holes. By that, probably limited to 150, 200 meters, something like that. And with the magnetic targets that we've got, coupled with the surface geochem, I think that they'll be very well targeted. So we'd probably be looking at less than half a dozen holes in that location. Of course, that would change should they be successful.
But essentially, you've got surface data, you've got a mag associated with it, a mag anomaly, and you're just you've got good ground truthing on it, and you're popping a few holes straight underneath there.
Yes, and then also with the electromagnetic data as well. Now that we know that the highest order anomaly is pyrrhotite, the second order anomaly there may well correlate with the sulfides that we see in that area. That work is ongoing. The other one is the Salty Cap prospect, so further to the north. That's an ultramafic, once again near surface. With that one, we didn't get ore grade intercepts, but what we did get was that over the meter intervals that we sampled, wherever there was sulfides present, so you could visually see that the pyrrhotite there, pentlandite is very similar to pyrrhotite in appearance, but wherever those sulfides present, we got a kick in the geochemistry for nickel, so up to about 0.3%. But that was from very thin veins that are hidden within a 1 meter interval. So what the positive takeaway from that is that, hey, there's sulfides there which are carrying some grade. So really with the data that we now have, it's fine tuning that and going in and drilling to see if we can find that larger pool of sulfide that may be present. So that, once again, not terribly deep drilling, and that area definitely warrants some drilling there.
And what are you using as your vectors to move out from where you drill last? Are you what data is going to drive your decision to either go along strike or kind of go at depth? Or is it alteration? Is it structure? Is it geophysics? Is it all of the above?
It's all of the above, to be honest. We've got with the orientations that we've taken down hole structural measurements down the hole. That helps to guide us from the drilling that we did last year. We've then got with this magnetic data, we can see that nearby you've got one of these major crustal scale features. We know that the mineralization at Sortie Cap is structurally controlled. We talked about possibility of on-echelon faults there. We can pick up that there is a major structure in the IP survey there as well. Really only one hole tested that last year, and in that we were getting these small veins of mineralization. So all these combined will give us a fairly robust couple of drill holes that will adequately assess that prospect. We then, with let's say if we jump further afield now, if we go to Cascata, so with that one we were drilling through a volcano sedimentary sequence there. And then at the base of that, we then hit a layered intrusion, which is one of these ones that David was talking about. And these are very prospective for reef-style mineralization, mostly with precious metals, so PGEs plus minus gold. But what we're doing right now, we have that material here in Europe. It's back where I live in Portugal, walking through it and getting further analysis done. So things like copper palladium ratios to see if this has the potential to host reef-style mineralization. So that's being assessed.
So you're doing essentially kind of a fertility study on it.
Yeah, basically, exactly. And with that one, I think that depending on the outcome of that work, which we'll know fairly soon, but at the same time, we only drilled through a couple of 100 meters of that intrusion in the upper sequence of it. So it may well warrant a couple of holes going a bit deeper into that to truly test to see if the potential for that reef-style mineralization is there. It's worth noting that with all other intrusions like this in the east coast of Greenland, they all contain mineralized reefs. They're all there. They do differ, but each does have one. So Skaergård is the best known example, but then there are others further up the coast which are really just inaccessible, which is why we don't hear about them. So then, I mean, Pyramid is a hugely exciting prospect. I mean, the giant bullseye that is Pyramid. Very interesting too that it's located between two major structures. It's in the middle there. With the geophysics, it stands out at great depth. So it appears to be a single intrusion. When it's reached the surface, it's bifurcated. You've then got these two intrusions at surface. It's something I haven't traversed by foot, but certainly have flown past it. We know that the host geology there is sediments. Then the intrusions where they've come through, it's an extremely rusty area. There's a lot of oxidation going on. So, it could be iron oxides, could be sulfides, but that is not too far away from Sortie Cap. A good chance that, really, we need to go and assess that as quickly as possible to get boots on the ground. But it could be anything from an ultramafic intrusion to a kimberlite pipe to. We just need to have a look at it.
So when you say that you haven't traversed it yet, it means, and you want to get boots on the ground, it literally hasn't been mapped yet.
Yeah, exactly right. So it hasn't by anybody in history. So I think it's definitely worthy of assessment. And that one's straightforward to get a drill rig there as well. But that's one of the prospects that first we'll go there, get the boots on the ground, build up our information, and then should it all stack up, we can then very much go and drill that one this year. And it's such a large area that we've got the other ones too. We've got Quest and Intrusion there, which is fascinating. I mean, I love this one, to be honest. It's right by the coast. It's very easy to access. It's in the geophysics and the satellite data, it definitely stands out as a feature. Nobody in history has ever been to this location. However, around the coastline with previous work that had been done, there had been sediment sampling and so on. And there they were getting very high chrome, nickel and copper anomalies. And this is all around the location of the intrusion without having actually gone in there before. And as soon as the sampling then goes further afield away from this likely intrusion, the chrome, nickel, copper values drop right off. So it gives a lot of credibility that could be certainly something of interest and very easy to access.
Pyramid and Quest are kind of high priority mapping and sampling targets, but you're going to be drilling Mickey, Shorter Cap, and Cascata.
Yeah, I mean, those ones just simply because we have more data, but I would certainly say that we'll probably be drilling the other ones as well, unless something really tells us that we shouldn't. And then there's Kitaparane. So, and there's another one.
But it would be going some to be drilling Pyramid and Quest this year, wouldn't it?
No, quite achievable.
Achievable. Okay.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, the area, I mean, it's a large license area, but to be able to move these fly rigs from one location to the other, distant by, say, 20 kilometers or something like that, infinitely achievable. We would be keeping the drill rigs together. And then once we finish with a certain prospect, we then move them across with the fly cam to the next one.
And that's a heli move?
That's a heli move, yes.
Okay. I'm much better informed now about what your plans are.
Well, look, it's a lot to take in. It really is. I mean, it's such a large area. Yeah. We're the first people ever to be there. Well, you know, with the drill rig and with the geophysics, and we have such an abundance of targets. And to be honest, it is a lot for a small exploration company, but we're well up for the task. As I said, we're gearing up for it. Personnel, we've got the logistics sorted, and I just think it's an incredibly exciting year. This one. I mean, yeah, can't wait.
Absolutely. Well, I look forward to seeing the photographs from Greenland, and hopefully the results will be better than the photographs, if you know what I mean.
Indeed.
Good. Thank you both for your time. Is there anything else that you feel that you haven't communicated that you'd like to, you know, what do we not covered that you think is really important, or maybe we've hit the main things?
For me, I think we've hit the main things. David?
Yeah, I don't know whether you just want to say anything about Mestersvig as well. So,
yeah.
The other prospects that you have, the other license.
Yeah, that's a good point.
When will you be working on Mestersvig?
This year.
This year as well?
Yeah.
And is that run from the same camp, or are you going to have a separate? Do you have a separate outpost for that?
Yeah, we're very much looking at getting that one moving this year. So we've got a separate outpost, so distant, you know, they're separated by, what is it, 700 kilometers. It's further to the north. But there's existing camp infrastructure. We've got the fuel on site, and we've also identified there's a drill rig nearby as well that it looks like we can use. So that one there. And the targets we have is that project is primarily for its zinc. So it was the historic mine was carrying roughly 10% zinc, 10% lead. But we've got 13 kilometers of strike length that hasn't been drill tested. It's very obvious to look at. Mineralization goes from surface down to depth there. And then also looking at strata-hosted mineralization as well. So where these geological structures, these faults carrying fluids have gone up and reached the upper Permian section, which is where you get quite a lot of carbon-rich layers. Then you can see an outcrop that these contain sulfides. You're seeing galena, you're seeing sphalerite, you're seeing copper sulfides, chalcopyrite, and barite as well. Never been drill tested, and these cover an area of roughly 250 square kilometers. So the potential there is huge. So there is a lot of work to be done at Mestersvig as well.
In terms of dollars, where are you going to, or percent, how much of your budget goes to Mestersvig and how much goes to Reiberg?
Yeah, we look with Mestersvig. We're just waiting for the confirmation on the rig to see if that's available, and then we put it all together in the budget. But I think that probably that Mestersvig is less helicopter reliant, that project. So the budget for Mestersvig is less, and also the existing camp infrastructure and being able to use vehicles to get around. So the budget would be greater for Reiberg, and then also with Reiberg, just the number of different prospects to look at, whereas at Mestersvig, they're more focused.
Great, thanks very much. I have to say, I like the sound of Mestersvig quite a lot.
That's a great project, really is. Yeah.
I mean, just immediately, having that, almost that kind of historic anchor point, you know, that the presence of an existing attempt. I don't know how economic it was, but kind of some kind of economic activity around it.
It's the only historic mine on the east coast of Greenland, and it operated in the 50s and 60s, and it operated for 11 months a year. So I think now with our technological technological advances, we could probably get it 12 months here. But it was an underground operation with some surface pits. The infrastructure is still there, and really it's baffling that it's been neglected. And we were very fortunate to be able to pick that one up.
Yeah, I think it's that to me that sounds pretty encouraging. Anyway, good. Thank you very much, both of you, for your time, and good luck with the work ahead.
Okay, thank you very much, man. Thanks for the opportunity, Matt.
Yeah, thank you, Merlin.